From I Am Interchange, this is the Hatch podcast series.
It seems now more than ever that we have found ourselves on the cusp of monumental worldwide change. Whether we consider the environment, politics, infrastructure, health, economics, or inequities across a broad swath of social constructs, the consensus is clear and urgent. All is not as it should be. The United Nations, a consortium of 193 member states from around the globe, agrees. In 2015, the UN unanimously adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. These goals call for urgent action in global partnership to secure peace and prosperity for people and the planet, now and into the future. In alignment with these goals, Hatch, a curated network of innovators, artists, activists, and entrepreneurs working together to accelerate positive global change, focuses the annual Summit Impact Labs on topics related to their 4 impact pillars: equity, education, environment, and empowerment. This series will explore those on the front lines of transformational systems change, accelerating solutions for these human challenges, uniting to hatch a better world for all.
I'm Tate Chamberlin, and in this podcast, I'm joined by Ryland Engelhart, co-founder and executive director of the film and organization Kiss the Ground, for a conversation about his Hatch Accelerator Lab, regenerative agriculture, and Engelhart's multi-pronged mission to help save the planet. Engelhart is the co-owner of the renowned Cafe Gratitude and Gracias, Madre, plant-based restaurants in Southern California, and co-creator of the documentary film May I Be Frank. A dedicated father and husband, Engelhart and his family live in Fillmore, California, where they put intention into practice on their own 17-acre regenerative organic farm. This is I Am Interchange. We are at the Hatch Summit in Paradise Valley, Montana, where 7 labs are being created that are aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and they're being presented and pursued over the next week in systems change accelerator courses. And one of my guests tonight is Ryland Engelhart. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Tate. Grateful to be here. It's been a great full day here at Hatch, and a lot of amazing people. And yeah, a lot of energy and hope and beauty. And, to be totally authentic, it's definitely a little confronting with 100 very intelligent, highly skilled, at the top of their game people. And, it's easy to fall into like, I don't belong, I'm an imposter. I don't have the accolades or the credentials or the education or the letters behind my name, and I know that it's, there's lots of different people, but I definitely had some of those fear flare, insecurity moments of, showing up here and having to like step past my self-judgment and my insecurity and just really dive into the present moment, and being humble and courageous was the mantra.
Yeah, I loved in your talk today, each of the presenters of the labs gave a presentation about what they were working on, the project that we'll get to tonight, and trying to convince the Hatch crowd to join the lab, the Accelerator Lab. And yeah, you did. What does education even mean anyway?
I guess it means learning things that become helpful and guide the activity and action and, expression of our lives. And so, yeah, I've definitely had a lot of life education in different chapters of my life, but I went to a Waldorf school. I went to kind of some alternative schooling systems, which, I'm grateful for them, but I definitely did not sort of take to the standard academic education of high school, and definitely found myself challenged and ended up not going to college because of fear and a feeling of inadequacy when it came to education, that still shows up when I find myself in environments with very intellectually or academically successful human beings. But here we are.
Here we are. What almost kept you from being here today?
Coming to the podcast or coming to making it all the way to Hatch? We're recording this late night, and so what almost
11:30 p.m. to be exact.
Yeah, exactly. I could have easily got inebriated in dancing and celebrating and just totally, went to my room and, forgot. But I felt, we pinky sweared on that I was coming, and it felt right. It's been a long day. I've talked a lot, and I'm still talking. So there was lots of reasons for potential scapegoating this, but I'm grateful that I said yes. I'm grateful I'm here. And I actually feel like I got energy to have this conversation, which I'm excited about. And what almost stopped me from coming to Hatch? Not being vaccinated. Actually.
Yeah, okay.
There was a conversation that maybe you had to be vaccinated to come to Hatch.
There was.
And I wasn't vaccinated as a child, and I definitely don't want this vaccination. And so, that's a whole other conversation, but that almost got my way.
Yeah, I understand not wanting something pricked in your body, but is being told what to do part of that?
Definitely not a Trumper, because some people go, "Oh, if you don't want the vaccination, he must be a Trumper."
I didn't.
No, I just that's something that does come up in and around. Anyways, at the deepest level, I have more faith in nature's design than a pharmaceutical company that is a serial felon that's paid billions in injuries to humanity intentionally. And for whatever reason, we think, the bad actors in big oil, and they kill activists, and they'll displace indigenous people, and they'll do all these things. And they're bad actors, and then it's Monsanto, glyphosate in the food, they're bad actors, they're poisoning us. But somehow Merck, given the largest opportunity to mandate, printing money, and ultimately lead to a continuation of a consensus and a precedent that we can have some virus and the government tells us how we have to deal with it, and they're being dictated by companies that are making trillions of dollars. My faith is not in Merck.
That's pretty uncomfortable. That is the way it is, with pharmaceuticals kind of leading it with what they say and the buy-in with the government.
Yeah, and all of our media is on the bankroll of pharmaceuticals. And so the narrative that is, it's this way, this is the only way to solving this, is a lie, and it is totally antithetical to everything that I'm doing around regeneration and understanding biological health and creating health at the most basic level of biology and microbiology. And that, the basis of a healthy biological system, is nutrients, food. The idea that every child is born into this world and that there's a belief that they need many chemical injections to be safe in the world is just not the approach and the trajectory that I want to lead. Just doesn't feel like the right path. Maybe
there's a natural preventative way of life that I can practice that will keep me healthy, as opposed to needing that type of medicine.
Let's not, get it twisted. I am so grateful for allopathic medicine and the amazing feats of science. But the priority, someone said it very well recently, a healthy person is no longer a customer. And a business that is, driven by pharmaceutical medications, the incentive is not to get people healthy.
Yeah.
And so the research and the patents and all the incentives is not to leave people so that they're resilient and healthy based on the food they eat, the exercise, the thoughts that they're having. I mean, that's not the business model. And now that our government can tell us the business that needs to tell us what we need to put in our bodies to be healthy. Anyway, this is not necessarily the conversation that we thought we were going to have.
The summit is a lot about systems change. What is systems change to you? And I think that our last piece is totally relevant. I mean, it's on everybody's mind. Like, that's the current system that we're in, is relying on all the pharmaceutical companies. And so I think that like fits into maybe what systems change encompasses.
Yeah. So systems change. Well, the systems that, I've been a part of, I've been part of a family that started a restaurant chain in Southern California and Northern California called Cafe Gratitude and Gracias, Madre, which are organic, plant-based restaurants that really focused on sort of the attitude of gratitude in our business ethos and how we communicated and how we showed up as an organization. But, one of the things that I was able to see and, have as a reference point in my life, which was getting to see systems change, back to the question, is when we first opened Cafe Gratitude, there was no almond milk in the grocery store, and people didn't know what quinoa was. There was no kale that was being eaten, in sautés. There was just a lot of things that the plant-based health food movement in the last 10 years has really, brought from totally marginalized to mainstream. And so when I think of systems change, I think of ideas that then emerge, and ideas that then change the paradigm of thinking, and then human ingenuity starts to invent, and entrepreneurship starts to get built inside of those new ideas. And so, just even the whole world of plant-based food and why that's valuable for the planet or for our bodies or for, animals, and the nutritional benefits potentially, and the food is medicine component of food. In the last 15 years, it's been a total transformation to where at one time this was something so marginalized, and now it's, so mainstream. So systems change, it means the image that's popping into my mind is this image from this course that I did at the group Soulfire Farms. They did an uprooting racism training, and the four wings of the butterfly is, this is hilarious, I can't now remember the four wings. It's rebuild, resist, renew and heal, and reform. And so, there's lots of ways that we can participate in systems change. Like there's the resist, like the kind of front line, kind of stop actions. And then there's the reform, which is like working inside of, a current system to try to shift it. And then, I don't know if the renew was sort of the Buckminster Fuller thing of like creating something new that makes the old one obsolete. That's really where I get excited, is in sharing new possibilities with people where they can see it, they can feel it, they can touch it, they can taste it, and it makes intuitive sense and it feels right and real, and they can see that possibility with you. And, when we share something that enlivens another, we actually get enlivened by it. Really the way that I've been systems changing in the thought leadership around regenerative agriculture and shifting consciousness awareness around the concept of regenerative agriculture as a climate change solution really has been through communication and sharing information with a lot of heart and a lot of passion and a lot of authenticity and a lot of love, and having people wanting to participate in that because they feel something is real and possible, and they, they're snapped out of maybe their momentary resignation or cynicism or, apathy. So to awaken that renewal of hope in others is the way that I've been approaching.
Through agriculture.
Yeah, I mean,
in a nutshell.
The sector we're working is, shifting agriculture, but we've approached it more from a communications and from a transforming I don't like the word consumer, but, human beings that are participating in the system by, purchasing food. Everyone who eats, as Wendell Berry said, eating is an agricultural act. So
yeah, it is.
Because we weren't farmers and we didn't have the street credibility to be like, farmers, you should do something different. We don't really have the knowledge or the place to do that. But what we did have the knowledge and the place to was, how do we educate, advocate, and be cheerleaders, champions for the pioneering farmers and ranchers and scientists and innovators and indigenous leaders that have been understanding this knowledge, and how do we elevate that story such that it becomes a new normal.
And so you took that and made a movie.
Yeah, the movie was a 7-year project that we were supporting. And while that film was being built, we were also building a nonprofit organization with 4 different programs that services education, media content, educating farmers and ranchers how to implement regenerative agriculture, and even providing micro grants for them to make that transition, as well as working on policy locally in Los Angeles and in California. And now we'll talk a little bit about this later, but this national policy campaign around the 2023 Farm Bill.
The name of the movie and the organization is Kiss the Ground. Tell me a little bit about the movie. And what I love about the movie is there's so much coming our way that's negative, and there's a lot of very sobering statistics on you name the topic. And you brought this movie and movement to life that has hope. And I love that. Just tell me a little bit more about that exploration and maybe the feedback from the public that you're getting with this.
Yeah, so just to go back, it really stems from a moment that I had of learning that we as human beings could support nature and natural function, and the way we manage land, the way we do agriculture, could go from the most destructive system on the planet to the system that could actually turn the clocks back. And I think Paul Hawken, who's an amazing journalist and author, just wrote a new book called Regeneration, Solving the Climate Crisis in One Generation. And he puts out there that, there's 4 times as much carbon in our soils right now as there is in the upper atmosphere. And there's a lot more room for that carbon in our soils. And if we could regenerate just 13% of the arable land on the planet, we could actually sequester enough carbon that I think that we've released since the Industrial Revolution. And so just to get connected to the, again, it's a huge endeavor, but just to get the scale of potential of carbon being sequestered, 13% of our land could take back what we've released since the Industrial Revolution of carbon into our atmosphere.
And that comes from traditional agriculture like tilling and loosening up the soils, is releasing that carbon and killing it with the pesticides. And
yeah, so what I was just talking about is the potential of regenerative agriculture to be a climate change mitigation tool, or to be a way that we can regenerate and heal and reverse the damages of climate change. As far as like the current practices of agriculture, of how they, are destroying our soils and how they're putting carbon into the atmosphere, yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive. Actually, I already quoted Wendell Berry once, but he said more people will die from the plow than the sword or the gun. And what he meant by that is that the plow, well, we know it to be the main instrument of agriculture since inception. It's actually when we break up the soil and we do that continuously, we actually cause desertification, and we ultimately cause an unliving soil, which is unable to produce a crop, which is unable to sustain human beings. So, and I think there's 25 known civilizations that have essentially offed themselves based on their destruction of their soil. So back to, yes, even though we've been tilling the soil since the beginning of, kind of what we consider, 10,000 years ago, we started doing agriculture. There was, the tilling of the soil, the overgrazing of animals, having animals grazing, and then they just graze and they pull up the roots of the grasses, and then that what once was a prairie becomes a desert. There's actually quite a bit of historical kind of aha moments of how destructive agriculture has been, in that we can look at a place like in the Middle East called the Fertile Crescent, which used to be savannas and was the origin place of settled agriculture. And now it's a complete desert. And that was actually not just, that was like that at one time. That was, a man-made phenomenon. And the same thing with the Sahara Desert was the breadbasket of the Roman Empire. And they, through mismanaging soils, overgrazing, overtilling, and irrigation that brought salt up into the upper soil, destroyed the soil, and it became desert.
What's it like to approach a traditional farmer and give them this feedback?
I tread very, very lightly in as far as communicating directly to farmers. We've mostly created content that speaks and uses the voice of other farmers that have successfully made the transition, versus us just being city slickers that are, talking some uneducated nonsense. And, on some level, we have some knowledge and some experience, but we don't really have the authority to. And again, the film was highly impactful, and many of the pieces of communication and content that we've created over the years have, spoke to farmers and created, I believe, transformation and greater awareness and education on new things. For the most part, we allow farmers to talk to farmers versus trying to directly convert or convince them of something.
Yeah, kind of the get in the ring if you want to have a say in it.
Yeah, and send the right messenger. We've been good messengers for a lot of influential thought leaders and entertainers and business CEOs and filmmakers and activists and, young people and moms concerned about their children. And we've been a good communicator for many groups, but for farmers, we empower farmers to be the messenger there. And how can we uplift and empower those voices of those individuals, because they really got the juice and the authentic voice of truth of what is possible, and knowing the walk of that person they're speaking to, versus me just speaking from a lot of theoretical ideas and intellectual learning.
You brought up the 2023 Farm Bill. Why does that matter in this?
Well, we came out with the film, and I just want to give credit and shout out to Big Picture Ranch and Josh and Rebecca Takal, the husband-wife director duo who directed the film. Yeah, the film came out. It came out on Netflix last year, September, and it's had a remarkable, it's been, for a documentary, it's been like lightning in the bottle of, a lot of people have seen it. 5 million people have seen it. It's won 50 film festivals. There's been 1 billion media impressions about the film coming out. And 7 years ago, there was almost no language and no communication about regeneration or regenerative ag. And now it's, it's a buzzword in so many places that I never imagined it would be. So, as a group that's really been focusing on changing public opinion about regenerative agriculture as a solution to, food security, human health, climate resilience, mitigating atmospheric carbon back into our soils, cleaning our water, better for our air, all these different benefits that regenerative agriculture can provide, more, farmer prosperity, rural development. But why the Farm Bill matters is that it's the biggest bundle of legislation that affects all of our lives, because it dictates the majority of how our food system operates. Talk about systems change. It is the juggernaut kind of thing that holds our current food system in place. And a big part of that, which is millions and millions of acres of corn, soy, alfalfa, some wheat, but the majority of the cropland in the U.S. is making junk food, unhealthy fats, sugars, carbohydrates, additives, and
Cattle feed.
and then cattle feed that is, really unhealthy. More antibiotics are used for our cattle than way more than all human consumption. Yeah, the quality of food that we're feeding the world is making us sick. So the Farm Bill dictates 41 million families that depend on food stamps or nutrition assistance, the SNAP program. So most of people who are food insecure are being fed commodity junk food, and ultimately leads to a lot of epidemics of obesity and diabetes and a bunch of other degenerative diseases. And then the Farm Bill, so it holds what are the current farming practices, crop insurance, incentives, subsidies, all that is in the Farm Bill, and it's very, it's as I've talked to experts about it, which I'm not an expert on it, but as I've talked to experts about it, it's been this juggernaut that's kind of been stuck for many, many years. And there's an opportunity that as we are facing, whether it's the United Nations saying we have, less than 60 years left of, until all of our soil is eroded and gone and not able to produce a crop, or the current signals of, the worst drought in recorded history on the west coast of the U.S. and the hottest summer and more fires and more floods and, all the evidence of extreme weather that is leading to all these catastrophes. And we're starting, I think people are seeing the end of the road and that we can't just not do anything. And so the Farm Bill and the current condition of America and the opportunity that I think 86% of people are concerned about climate change and 1% is engaged. And so our thought is, can we get the public engaged with a solution that is hopeful, optimistic, has real validity and science behind it, it feels intuitive, and the additional benefits of going to a more regenerative approach to agriculture do all these other ecosystem services, don't even have anything to do with climate change, but are these added values. And so if we can get the American public connected to that the Farm Bill is the thing that affects their lives in a lot of negative ways and could be affecting their lives in positive ways, and that it's their $470 billion of taxes that fund the Farm Bill, and that if they could see that regenerative ag could be this compelling vision of the future through a reallocation of funds in the 2023 Farm Bill, that's where we see some new legislation and augmentations of the Farm Bill, which is rewritten every 3 to 5 years. And, there's an opportunity, I think a condition, within the weather events, within the pandemic, within the new administration, within, all the social unrest and the youth movements. There's just so many things pointing like this is something that needs to get attended to. And there's not a lot of solutions that are very well expressed and communicated and that everyone can participate in. And everyone eats every day. And if we could eat in a way that was supporting the regeneration of our soils and in turn sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere, reducing or reversing global warming, that is a compelling vision that a lot of people could get behind.
Well, okay, so what do you think is more important, legislative change or social change?
We're approaching both in that we think that the public, when the public becomes, and I know that there's so much corruption and there's a lot of evidence that shows that legislation gets passed based on the 5% of the population that has, the majority of the resources and the lobbying dollars and businesses that ultimately dictate, what policies pass. And there there is moments in history when there is an unprecedented public outcry and stand, and this is what we want, that has influenced and can influence, and I believe will influence policy. And so our approach is, how do we create an unprecedented grassroots advocacy coalition-based campaign with lots of unlikely partners all coming together around this common ground issue, soil health, regenerative agriculture, rebuilding back America's soil so that we can have, better human health, we can have better farmer prosperity, and we can have better, climate resilience or climate health. I think the public this can be a moment of incredible participation and collective voice for this. So I do think that the politicians do follow, the people, but there is a lot of stagnation and weight on the feet and, deferring, because ultimately they are funded. All politicians are needing to campaign to stay in their seats, and to get, stay in their seats and fundraise, they need funding, and that comes from businesses and corporations that ultimately, pay them to keep their roles, and in turn that they work for those individuals, and those individuals are, the big industries, and big ag being one of those.
You're one of the featured labs here at Hatch this week, and today was your first day of it, and you've got a couple of days left before you are kind of through this accelerator with strangers, these superheroes. Where are you at now, and where are you hoping to be by the end of the week?
So yeah, I got to share a little bit in front of the whole Hatch group, which felt great to just be received in that way, and a lot of great feedback there. And then we moved to a breakout room with everyone who wanted to kind of focus in and drill down on this initiative, Regenerate America, Soils Our Common Ground, a reformation to the 2023 Farm Bill. And because there wasn't a common language or a common, it was a lot of kind of background that had to get put forth. It was a little bit, tricky to get everybody focused in, but we have an amazing group, unbelievable superheroes in the room to be working on this. And I feel like me and the facilitator are going to sort of narrow down 3 buckets that we feel like we can have the group really sink their teeth into and really bring sort of a focused creativity. I think today it was a little too diffuse of where people could put their energy, and so we were a little all over the place. But I'm confident and excited that tomorrow is going to gel.
Yeah, day one is tricky because it's the first part of solving a problem is obviously orienting to it and understanding it completely and the complexities of it. And so first day is like shooting in the dark with like which direction to go, like a scribble.
Totally.
Yeah, but then tomorrow it's kind of ideates and simmers, and then it gets into the action over the next couple of days. That's where they just like come to life, and yeah, it's super inspiring to see that transformation of the cool projects at Hatch for sure. Glad that Regeneration is part of that this year.
Me too. Thrilled. My hopes for it is that I come away with some sticky, icky ideas or concepts or messaging for the campaign that is just, that just is like, yes, that is so it. So that's one of the places that we're going to explore is, who are our most important audiences, what are the messages that could excite and ignite those audiences. So I'm excited to hear the creative brain trust of the group to explore some of that.
Is democracy fast enough for the change we need? Do we need a dictator for a day?
That's a funny question. That's a good question. Yeah, that's interesting. I've definitely been told that like when things want to happen in China, it's just like, it happens. Yeah, I think that I think business and entrepreneurship are gonna probably go the fastest, but I do think that us driving towards policy change is, even though business can pivot quicker and make things happen quicker and kind of transform their supply chains and have the consumer be excited about something such, and them being a relevant brand that really speaks to these sustainability or goals. So I do think business is way more nimble and going to be hugely impactful, but I also do feel like there is maybe a ripe moment in systems change, in democracy, in administration that's currently within their priorities, that see there's there's a need for making some real radical changes around climate beneficial plans, and agriculture and food is one of the most essential nexuses of that change. So I'm hopeful.
On that hopefulness, whose reality do you think will win the future?
I'm gonna go super esoteric, spiritual on you, in that I think that at the basis, at the most fundamental level, the human being is an emanation of love. The essence of every human being is love. I have faith in that ultimately will be victorious, and I don't know what destructions will happen, but I do have faith in the human being, and that the human being is an expression of love, and that will emerge as an organizing principle in society at some point, and maybe not in our lifetime, but that is what I have an optimism and a faith about.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's a tricky question. Like, people's realities are so different, and they're so entrenched in them and passionate about them, and they'll do anything to keep it.
Change is difficult when we're honest with ourselves. So to ask big Titanics to change quickly is difficult.
Did you pick between a dictator or democracy?
I'm going democracy.
Democracy.
Yeah.
Even if you were the dictator?
Benevolent dictators, hard to come by.
I was in your Ask Offer group today, and you pitched your idea beyond the movie as an organization, Kiss the Ground. And you have the idea, and you're ideating it, and you have kind of the movement building behind it, but you had an ask. What do you need? What's your ask right now to the audience?
Yeah, so there's quite a few asks, but the one that I articulated today is that looking for a CEO or an executive director to either lead or co-lead with me. I don't want to actually go anywhere. I want to do what I'm really great at, which is evangelizing the message of regeneration and Kiss the Ground and Regenerative America, and bringing people into the organization and fundraising and building the movement. But my strategic operations skill set is not so developed, and so I'm looking for a really skillful, strategic, experienced CEO or executive director to come and take over or co-lead. I'm open to a co-CEO, co-executive director role, or stepping into a different role but still staying within the organization. So that's the first time that's been publicly communicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a huge opportunity for some individual to step into an amazing role with an amazing organization, an amazing mission that has already been able to catalyze some shift and change and systems change, and is looking to continue to do that.
Till you put yourself out of business.
That's right.
As a proper nonprofit should.
That's right.
What's your second ask?
Second ask for the audience. Interesting. I didn't consider the sprint asks that I was developing today. I'm trying to see if those are baked enough to be audience asks. Well, yeah, we're building a massive coalition of brands, NGOs, thought leaders, influencers, farming groups. So if you are a group that is working on climate change and wanting to support or connect to the agricultural solution to climate change, we would love for you to participate in the Regenerate America campaign, Soil is Our Common Ground, and join the coalition. If you're concerned about climate change and you see agriculture as a solution, and you want to build a momentous effort towards reforming how agriculture is done in the U.S., and you see that the Farm Bill is an opportunity, and you even have some priority that you would want to get changed, we would love to have you join the coalition.
We're up at Paradise Valley in Montana with Hatch, and we've got the Action Sprint Labs this week. IM Interchange is teamed up to explore the complexities of each of these labs more deeply, and regeneration with Ryland has been a really popular topic. People are mingling about it, and Kiss the Ground is the documentary and also the name of the organization to check out and possibly become a co-leader of if that's up your alley.
KissTheGround.com. Check it out.
Ryland Engelhart, thanks so much for being here. I have a feeling that these late night ones are going to be my most memorable.
This was fun.
Yeah.
This was fun. Thank you. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for being a present, gracious, and playful human being, Tate. I enjoy your energy and your smile.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Maybe it does indeed start with a seed. One of doubt, worry, curiosity, hope, intuition, compassion, one of love. As Ryland Engelhart so aptly summarizes, regenerating American soil is and should be our common ground. When more people have died from the plow than the sword and gun combined, it seems appropriate that humanity's future should rest upon it. And perhaps in the most iconic of turns, the simple solution requires us to do less. Less manipulation of the land's composition and animals' nature, less adding to and taking away from the soil that knows better, less forcing and more trusting of a mother whose bounty has always carried us. Let's lean into the simple. Let's plant some seeds in the ground and community, nurture them with love and support, and manifest a nourishing new paradigm that makes the old obsolete. Let's simply and collectively save the world. A shout out to our media and production team: Jessica Byerly, Allison Gregory, Kevin Hilton, Roy Chapman, Eli Kisko, Raymond Onsatagi, Sean Mackinson, Robert Edwards, and Mark Groner. A special thanks to Yarrow Craner, Jared Silverman, Pete Strom, Josie Caton, Eitan Shapira, Cassidy Seckman, Bryant Stersala, Rachel Hicks, Katie Yam, and Lou Morris. A special thank you to Hatch supporters, Steelcase, the Kauffman Foundation, the Gideon Fund, Envision Equality, the Hatch Volunteers, Board of Directors, Hatch Guardians, and the community who help make this work and mission possible. To learn more about Hatch, visit thehatchexperience.org. Building community could not happen without food. And with that, I'd like to thank Whistle Pig Korean, Red Tractor Pizza, and Zocalo Coffee House. Do you have an issue that's riddled by gridlock in your community? Shoot me an email at tate@iaminterchange.org. That's tate@iaminterchange.org. Remember, share airtime and don't ruin dinner.